The most insane places to live underground. Have you ever wondered what it would be like to live beneath the surface of the earth? The place where most people imagine living is either in a busy city, a quiet neighborhood, or maybe even the middle of nowhere in the country. But what if the strangest and maybe most interesting places to live are below the top of the earth? People all over the world have been living underground for hundreds of years for a variety of reasons, such as to get out of the heat, avoid fighting, or just because they had to. Some people may think it's crazy or even strange, but many communities have thrived in these underground homes, building unique ways of life that are both interesting and useful. The opal capital of the world is Cury, Australia. Cury could be the next best thing to living on another planet, if that sounds good to you. This small town in the middle of the South Australian outback looks like something from a science fiction movie. As the opal capital of the world, Cury is in the middle of a desert where summer temperatures can easily reach over 110 degrees Fahrenheit, 43 degrees Celsius. Many of the town's 2,500 people live in underground homes called dugouts instead of dealing with the hard weather above ground. The temps underground stay pretty cool all year, so these dugouts protect you from the blazing heat. These homes are carved into the sides of hills and into the ground. They are surprisingly large and modern with fully stocked kitchens, bedrooms, and even internet access. Some people have built hotels, bars, and even a church underground to take their underground life to the next level. The unique way of life in Cury comes from its large opal reserves. The town was built in the early 1900s when a lot of workers came to the area to look for the valuable stone. The only realistic way to stay cool in that heat was to live underground, which has become a way of life for the community. Ancient cave cities in Cappadocia, Turkey. Cappadocia is in the middle of Turkey and is famous for its strange scenery of fairy chimneys and rock formations. But below this magical surface is a huge network of very old underground towns that people have lived in for a very long time. Cities like Derinkiu and Kaymakli were built underground as early as the 8th century BC. They were big enough to hold up to 20,000 people at once. At first, these cities were built as places to hide from invaders. They had everything a community could need, like homes, places to store food, places of prayer, and even ventilation systems. The residents could live underground for months at a time without ever having to come to the surface. This was possible because the buildings were carefully built to let air flow and keep the residents safe from the weather above. Many of the cave homes in Cappadocia have been turned into unique hotels and tourist spots. But for some people in the area, living in caves is still a practice. Today, cave homes in Cappadocia have electricity and running water, making them the right mix of old history and modern comfort. Mat Tunisia and the Star Wars connection. Fans of Star Wars may know the homes that are dug into the ground in Mat Tunisia. The town in the desert that Luke Skywalker grew up in on Tatooine was filmed here. In real life, people in Mat live in troglodyte houses, which are cave-like structures dug into the ground with open courtyards that lead to runes carved out of the ground. These homes were first built underground more than 1,000 years ago because people had to. Mat is in a desert area with very hot and cold nights. Living underground provides natural insulation that keeps the houses cool in the sweltering summer months and warm in the cool desert nights. Many of the homes have been updated to make them more appealing to tourists, but some Berber families still live in these traditional underground houses, keeping alive a way of life that has been around for hundreds of years. Sentinel de las Bodegas, Spain, a town under the rocks. In the Andalusian area in the south of Spain, there is a town that looks like it is being squished by huge rocks. Sentinel de las Bodegas is built under and between big rock overhangs, which makes for a unique style of architecture, in which homes and shops are blended into the hills around them. Sentinel's people have been using the area's natural features for hundreds of years, building their homes into rocks to keep their houses warm. In the summer, the stone protects you from the hot Spanish sun, and in the winter, it helps keep you warm. Sentinel de las Bodegas isn't completely underground like many of the other towns on this list, but the homes and streets are covered in rocks, which gives it a very strange feel. Today, the town is a famous place for tourists to visit because of its beautiful scenery and unique buildings. The Wika salt mine in Poland is a world of wonders underground. The Wika salt mine in Poland is one of the most amazing places underground on Earth, even though it's not really a city. There are a huge network of tunnels, chambers, and statues made out of salt at this UNESCO World Heritage Site. This underground maze was made by miners over 700 years. It's over 178 miles, 287 kilometers long, and goes down more than 1,000 feet, 300 meters. At its busiest, the salt mine housed tens of thousands of miners. It still has its own church, restaurant, and health spa, all of which are deep underground. Even though no one lives there full-time, the fact that people have found ways to adapt to and use the underground world is amazing. The Subterranean Beijing underground bunkers turn homes. In the 1960s, when relations between China and the Soviet Union were at their worst, Beijing built a huge network of underground bunkers to protect its people in case of a nuclear attack. The network of tubes and shelters below China's capital is called the Underground City, and it goes on for miles. Many of these bunkers have been turned into low-cost apartments for the city's poorer people. Even though living underground in Beijing isn't very nice, it shows how people can deal with limited room and high housing costs in cities. But they are a practical and cheap way for low-income workers and migrants to get housing in Beijing. Or ESO, the underground city in Montreal. Hidden in the middle of Canada's coldest big city is a city called RESO, also known as La Ville Souterraine. A city within a city is made up of this huge network of underground tunnels that join shopping malls, hotels, apartment buildings, and metro stations. The underground complex goes on for more than 20 miles, 32 kilometers, giving people in Montreal a safe place to get out of the cold winter weather. In Montreal, some people do not live underground, but for many, RESO is an important part of daily life, especially during the long winter months. In one of the coldest places in the world, the underground city provides warmth and ease by letting people move around the city without ever having to leave. The future of living underground, cities under the ground. As the number of people living in cities continues to rise and environmental problems like climate change make traditional ways of life less safe, some architects and city managers see the underground as a way to solve the problem. Plans for underground cities have already been put forward in areas with a lot of people like Tokyo and Mexico City, where room is limited and natural disasters like earthquakes and floods are a big risk. These futuristic underground cities could be a more resilient and sustainable way to live. Why do people choose to live below ground? Even though it might seem strange to live below the Earth's surface, many people do it for useful reasons. The first benefit is that it helps keep the temperature stable and protects you from the weather. This is especially useful in places with harsh weather, space limitations, and cities with lots of people. Building underground is a good way to make the most of space without having to grow outward. Living underground is an interesting way to see how creative and strong people can be, from the hot outback of Australia to the rocky cliffs of Spain. Living underground might seem crazy to some, but for the people who live in these underground towns, it's just another day. Whether they have to or choose to, these underground places make us think about what home really means and how people can change their surroundings in new ways. If you've enjoyed exploring these incredible underground places, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Join our community for more amazing content about the world's most unique living experiences and travel adventures.